Thank you for the kind introduction, Vignesh. Good evening, everyone else. Hi, I'm Archy. I hope you're having a good day. If you're not, I hope I don't ruin it further. Let's begin. Today, we'll be discussing career opportunities that you have as a master's graduate in science. Before I begin, let me give you a quick review of what I'll be talking about. Firstly, I'll be introducing to you why you should be thinking about your career right now. Basically, I'll be acting like a career counselor, which I'm not, but I will act like one. Then I will be majorly focusing on this special prospective career option. Special because I am someone who's doing that and I have experience in it. So I'll be telling in detail about how to pursue PhD after your master's. Then, but if you are not someone who's into academia, then you have other options. Unlike popular belief, you have options after your MSc as well. So I'll be shedding some light on the jobs after MSc, and if you want to switch fields and go to a different fields, what you need to do. And then I'll be concluding with some more career counseling stuff. So let's begin with the introduction. Why are we having this discussion? Why should we be talking about career? You guys are probably in the early undergrad course, second or third year. And this is, in my opinion, the perfect time to be choosing a career. And we're having this discussion because I know a lot of you would be confused about what to do, where to go. Do you even know? Did you even want to get into an MSc course? I know I have known a lot of people who just took an MSc because BTech namely. I'm sure that tradition is being continued, but it's not a big deal if you did not get into an engineering field or something that you wanted to. MSc opens the doors to a lot of possibilities, and let's talk about those. And unless you get an exposure to what they are, you won't really know what to do. So combined with my small little experiences that I have had over my MSc, I'll be telling you what probably are the career options you can take. And this is also for people who have already decided probably on their career, but they don't know what to do anymore. Like, I decided that I wanted to do a PhD when I was in school, but I had no idea. Like, I took MSc, but then now what? I was at that stage. So I had did a lot of things, and I'll be sharing some of that with you. So don't be afraid, don't be bogged down by that confusion. Let's go. Now, this is a very heavy slide. The title, it says how to decide on a career. I am no expert in that. You are someone who would be doing it, but I can give you some tips. Firstly, is that you need to play your strengths, know your weaknesses. Something happened. Play your strengths, know what you're good at. Like, as human beings, we love feeling good about ourselves. So if you get into a job, a career that you know you excel at, you will always like doing it. Like, you know how they say, make your hobby your profession. Like, do what you love and you'll never work a day in life. That is what I'm technically saying. So know what you're good at, analyze it, because that plays a very important role in deciding your career. Know your weaknesses. You probably don't have to work as hard as knowing your strengths, because there will be a lot of people who will already tell you your weaknesses. Just kidding. But yes, you will get a lot of criticism in life, especially because you're in college right now, surrounded with a lot of different types of people. So you need to filter out that. I I literally talked to this guy in University of California who worked in theoretical chemistry, and there was this guy who worked in Johns Hopkins University. So I literally what I did my entire summer vacation was talk to these people. What do they do? What do they feel about it? Do you think do they think I should do it? What is the requirement of doing it? So it's always better to ask someone who has that experience, who's living the dream. So you can do that. And I don't think that you will ever come across a person who will refuse to guide you, because you're young. Everybody wants to, as I said, feel good about themselves. So they will feel, if you're shy of asking people, don't be afraid. They'll be very happy that someone is actually approaching them for this. And then ultimately decide. This
Based on
sounds
life,
like a no-brainer,
Airbus
but
370.
it actually
With my
requires a lot
353
of
seats, I am the
guts,
best
a
airman
lot of
because I carry most
decisiveness,
passengers.
which a lot
Anton
of
of
people lack
270. With my 6
to,
engines, I carry
ultimately decide on a
250 tons
career,
of freight.
because
Airbus
there are a lot of ifs and
270.
buts. What if this
Everybody wants
happens?
me
What if
because
that
I'm
happens?
silent and economic and
Think
kerosene.
about them, calm
Boeing
yourself,
777.
but
I am the best
ultimately
because with my
do
technical
decide on
issue, I
something,
create tons of
especially on a
mechanical
plan
jobs.
A, because that is what you need to focus on in your degree, because you're in college, you're not in school anymore. So you need to start specializing your skills, specializing your talents, so that you can make a living out of it. Don't fret. This is the only thing I can say about what not to do. Is like, it's okay if you probably decide on something which turns out to be wrong. It's, as I said, as this says, it's not the end of the world. If you choose something, like for example, if you're someone who who got admitted into this MSc course, and you end up not liking the institute or not liking the course or something, don't worry about it. Don't fret about it. It's not the end of the world. It might seem like that for the first few months, but you know that there is always a way out. There is always something that you can do to get out of that situation. So don't fret. Think calmly. Think critically. Be rational about your goals. Be rational about your strengths and weaknesses, and just do it. Just do it. Decide. Um, Now the acting like a career counselor part is over. I would like to tell you in detail about the first career option, that is pursuing PhD. Um, First, initially, let's talk about some words of caution. A PhD is not simply an extension of your MSc. So you're currently in second, third years, so you might not, you're still bachelors technically, but when you get into an MSc, it will give you a feel. You will get to feel what research is, because you will be publishing a master's thesis. You might even publish articles and papers. So you will get a bit of an idea, a superficial idea of what research is. But a PhD is not just a bigger version of your MSc. So if you like MSc, if you like what you're doing in your MSc, uh, be cautioned that the PhD won't be just an extended version, a 5-year version of your MSc. It won't be like that, because when you're doing your MSc project, you will have other people to rely on. You are often looked as an undergraduate, so undergraduates aren't really supposed to know anything. So you are, let go easily. It's very lenient. A PhD is not that. You don't have anybody to rely on when you're doing your PhD. You are creating knowledge. It requires producing original research. Uh, you won't get to rely on someone. You will get guidance, obviously, by your supervisor, but that is very cryptic type of guidance. You will have to make your way, or make your own way through a PhD. So be aware of that. And then there's this weird mentality in a lot of people. I've noticed that they kind of, I'm one of them, they kind of look at PhD as the ultimate research destination. That, okay, this will be my research project in PhD, and I have to do my best in my PhD, and I have to bring breakthroughs, or just do amazing work. That's not supposed, you're not supposed to do that in a PhD. Like if you think of scientists and researchers, famous scientists and researchers in the past, I don't think you can barely name ones who have done their major breakthroughs, the things they're famous for in their PhDs. A PhD is only supposed to prepare you as a researcher, to give you the tools to do research. You will be learning skills, you will be learning how to conduct research, how to build networks, how to present a paper, how to write a paper. These are all the things that are required as an academician and as a researcher. And a PhD is a training period. It's a degree. It's just still in college, still study. You're still learning. It's supposed to teach those techniques so that you can be a researcher. I mean, being a researcher is not easy either. So there's that. Now let us talk about PhD options after MSc. First of all, we'll be discussing how to do a PhD in India. Let me tell you, give you a brief picture of what it means to be doing a PhD in India. On an average, it takes 5 years. It could take up to 7 years. Brilliant people do it in like 4 years or something. But like usually 5 years is the average. You are supposed to do coursework in your first year. The coursework could extend up to second year depending upon your wish. And then once you are done with your coursework in the first year, you decide on a project in the lab that you're working in, under your supervisor. You decide on a project, and then the next 3 years you work on that project, and then you publish a thesis, and then you defend it, and then you are a doctor. And for that, you'll have to clear these exams, NET, National Eligibility Test, GATE. We all know about these. These are important so that you ensure funding for you. So the funding for an Indian PhD student is 27,000 for JRF, which is for the first 3 years you're a JRF, for the last 2 years you're an SRF, Senior Research Fellow. So you get 27,000 for your JRF period and 31,000 for your SRF period. If you are a recipient of any of these fellowships. Inspire Fellowship is given to the top 2 rankers in a university in the department. So if you are someone who has a high CGPA or is planning to be the top ranker, you can apply for an Inspire Fellowship for your PhD as well. This will ensure you funding for 5 years. However, it is not completely necessary to be having such a fellowship. A lot of PhDs are either institute funded, like we have in SVNIT. A lot of PhD students haven't qualified these exams, but still do their PhDs. It happens in every institute. And the funds come from the institute. The institute pays for the PhD, for the work that they're doing in their PhD. And then there is also a part-time PhD, something like a part-time PhD, where you can do another job and still work in your PhD. So you work on the weekends, or you work once like 2 months in a year, or long distance, or it happens, something like that. Not very advisable, because PhDs are very demanding and you probably cannot focus on them while doing the job, but it is an option. And then thirdly, we have self-funded PhDs as well. So if you clear an interview and you don't have any of these fellowships, but the professor wants you in, so he can hire you in his lab, but you won't get any funds. You'll have to do it on your own. That's like you pay you for your master's. Similar to that, you will be paying for your PhD. Interviews for PhD admissions. So the application process is that you apply for interviews, and which take place in July or June, and applications might start earlier, of course. But yes, the best advice would be that you prepare for your NET exams, especially if you're a science graduate. If you're someone in the engineering field, GATE is the gateway to PhD. You'll have to prepare NET because it is a very, frankly speaking, a very prestigious fellowship. So if you are a NET fellow, you will be looked up in all your academic circles, and it will help you get jobs after your PhD. NET is important if you're doing a PhD in India. And NET is difficult. Like, it's not a piece of cake. For science students, GATE is still not very difficult. Like, GATE in physical sciences, chemical sciences, mathematical sciences, not a big deal. But NET is difficult, somewhere between JEE Mains and JEE Advanced. So you'll have to prepare for it actually. And especially for chemistry people, the syllabus is unending. It's so vast. You don't know where to begin and where to end. So it's better that you start as early as possible. At the end of the you should start it at the end of the third year. But if you can start early, even better. Let's discuss the pros and cons of doing a PhD in India. It might be easier to get a faculty position later. This is a rather controversial statement, but I'm going to say it anyway. Because you will be well networked in India. If you're doing a PhD under in an Indian institute under a professor, the people he collaborates with, the same institute would know you better. So it's very likely that you get, if you are later on applying for a faculty position, you do get it. Like, it happens in our institute. We've seen it. Like, we have TAs, and a lot of TAs are those who have done their MSc from the institute itself. So basically, that's like nepotism. But I mean, it's the truth. So it might be easier to get a faculty position. You are closer to friends and family. This might sound like we don't need that, but that is not true. As I said, PhD is mentally very exhausting, and you will need a support group. You will need people to take care of you, take care of your mental health, take care of your needs. So if you're closer to friends, if you're closer to family, you can, enjoy better. And yes, the problem is that work-life balance in India, there's basically no concept of work-life balance in India. Like, professors can ask you to come to the lab or have a meeting, group meeting, or even on Sundays. I've attended group meetings on Sundays. So, it will be very exhausting. So you will need people you can have fun with. Then transition to PhD life is smoother than doing it abroad, because you are not moving anywhere. You're in the country. You know how Indian institutes work. You know the bureaucracy. You know what forms, what are the formalities required. So that's not something you have to be worried about. But if you're moving abroad, you'll have to worry about those things as well. Now, if you're talking about the cons, limited infrastructure, obviously the funding is abysmal, like, compared to the spending that other countries do on scientific research, a percentage of GDP. And what we do is very less. So there will be issues with funding. And as I said, like the NET exam, it's very competitive. A lot of people sit for it. I mean, they're not, I don't understand how so many people just randomly decide to do a PhD. Then there's less scope for interdisciplinary research. This is again something a little controversial, but you've seen it, how there are often feuds between departments, so which limits research, interdisciplinarity in research in India. People often don't put their fights down just so they can collaborate over work. That doesn't happen. So, and like, even the options are very limited. Like, for example, I did an MSc in chemistry. A lot of you are doing it in physics, chemistry, or maths, and there is barely any, coursework from other departments. Probably one or two over the years, second and third year. So there's this issue of interdisciplinarity. Like, I am someone who cares a lot about interdisciplinarity. My field is very interdisciplinary. It uses physics, maths, chemistry, computer science, all of it. And I have lacked coursework in that because the institute does not offer it. So there's very less scope, and this continues for PhD as well. Then there's this important point that the post-PhD career is limited to academia. People simply assume that if you're doing a PhD, you will become a professor. Oh my God, sorry. You will become a professor. That should not be the case. There should be other options after PhD as well. And there are, especially in other countries. But in India, it is very, very, very limited. There's just too much competition in those fields. I'll tell about those later, what you can do after PhD as well. Now let us talk about PhD in USA, Canada, or Australia. It typically, these are like non-European countries, basically. These PhDs here typically take 5 years to complete. It could extend as well, but 5 years is the average. You will again be required to take courses in your first year, work as TAs. You have to do that in India as well, and then give exams at the end of the first year, and then start research work. Especially in the US, this is something which is very rigid because the USA education system is such that they do their PhDs right after their bachelor's. Their people don't do masters over there. Their bachelor's consists of 4 years of training. So right after bachelor's, people start their PhDs. It's a whole structured grad school thing. So they're very rigid about coursework and giving exams. In India, that is not the case. The exams are like, it's fine if you don't clear it after 2 semesters. The professor will still have you in the lab. That is not the case in USC. I've written it in a very, it's a very soft blow that some universities might also give you the liberty to leave after 2 years with a master's degree. But that's not exactly the thing. The thing is that if you do not clear your exams in 2 years, they kick you out with a master's degree, that you're not fit to do a PhD. So you can just leave, and here's a compensatory master's degree in place of a PhD. So you have to keep in mind that, and their coursework is very rigorous. Their exams are very standard, how they're supposed to be. Like the US PhD thing is considered to be the standard of PhD programs. The funding is not an issue because once you're accepted into a university, you get funding. And then if you're TAing, you get some extra money as well. So that's not a problem. Talking about the application process, it is very, very elaborate. Because first of all, you need to select a university. This is a very important process in the entire procedure. Try to narrow down it by the end of your 4th year, because the application forms, especially in the US, require money. Like they do ask for money, like $20, $30, $50 or something per application form. So it's kind of expensive for us. So narrow it down. The ideal would be that you select some universities very ambitiously, like the top 10, a couple of them from the top 10. But considering the tier of institute that we currently study in, we have high chances of getting in the top 30 or top 40 universities of USA if you work hard during your entire MSc, do projects and all, have a very strong application. So list down universities from each category, the best ones, a couple of them at max, a few of the good ones, and a few of the average ones if you want to go to USA. Don't go for popularity or rankings. Yeah, this kind of counters my point, but the thing is that a PhD is not just about the coursework and the university. So for the first 2 years, yes, but after that you will be handled by your PI, by your supervisor. So you need to keep tabs on which supervisor you're selecting as well. So do a background check if there are enough researchers in the field that you're interested in, and then apply. Entrance exams is like you'll have to give GRE, subject GRE if you are applying to, especially if you're from maths and physics category. Top universities usually mandatorily ask for subject GRE scores. So, and it is an offline test which happens only once a year in October. I mean, at least in my times that was the case. Now the times have changed, so I don't know. You'll have to check that out. Then general GRE is about your English and stuff. It has verbal, quantitative, and analytical writing things. This subject GRE is also a piece of cake for us because you can see it's meant for bachelor students in USA. So for us, if we work hard enough, subject GRE would not be a problem. And anyway, they ask for 70 above, a score of 70% and above. So that's not a big deal. But general GRE is, of course, a big deal. You've heard about it, probably would have definitely heard about it. And it is required for all branches in the USA. You will have, there is, I don't think there is any university in US that accepts you if you do not have GRE scores. So do it. You won't require much preparation if you are fluent in English. Probably 3 or 4 months of preparation for GRE would be fine. Then you have TOEFL and IELTS as well, which are accepted by Canadian and Australian universities. They accept GRE scores as well, but if you do not want to go into that whole GRE preparation thing, you can sit for TOEFL and IELTS, which are just basically English language exams. So, and they're accepted by Canadian and Australian universities, not by US universities. And these are online as well, so you book a slot and you can give it according to your convenience. There is no thing about that this is the date when the exam happens. That's not the case. Then you have some other requirements. Although I have mentioned this in this category, PhD in US, Canada, Australia, but this stands for rather any application process in any university. So you will have to work on a CV. US often limits you to send a CV which is just 1 page. So keep that in mind. Basically, what you can do is prepare a 1-page CV and a full thing, and tweak it according to where you're applying. Then you will have to write a statement of purpose. I think we'll be talking about this in our later talks, probably in academic writing, and Anirudh will be speaking on this. But I'll give you what basically is statement of purpose is that you introduce your education, you talk about your interest, why you want to apply into that program. You talk about your experiences, what all research you've done. You talk about your coursework, and then ultimately you wrap it up with why you think this program will help you. That is the entire purpose of an SOP. Then this is something which is something which will, बहुत परेशान करेगा. Because letters of recommendation is not in your hand. I mean, the most you can do is have good relations with 5 or 10 professors, and then you will have to ask them individually every time you are applying to a PhD position. Which is why this is another reason why you need to narrow down your applications, because you can't apply to 50 universities and then ask your professor to fill out 50 different letters of recommendation. And it is often the case that each university has a separate format for LOR. So, this is something which you will not like doing. Be prepared to have at least 3 referees. It varies between 1 and 4. Some universities also ask for 4. Some are fine with just 1. But at least 3 you should definitely be prepared with. And you need to inform them like at least 10 or 20 days, like very early in your application. Even if you haven't completed your application, just inform your professor that you will be asked that needing their recommendation letter for this and this application, because professors are busy. They often take a lot of time to do this stuff. They kind of always push it off for the end. I don't know why. So, and then there's this thing that it is a confidential document. So not in all cases, but in most of the cases, it happens that you do not get to see that document. You just upload your referee's email ID, or you ask your referee to directly upload it to the application portal. You don't get to see the LOR often. Deadlines for these applications are usually somewhere between November and January. It depends on the university, but I think you should be prepared by October. You should have everything ready by October, so that in the October of your final year, that's just after your 9th semester starts. So basically, you have to do everything in your 4th year. This selection process and all of that, you should do that in your 4th year. Is there a problem? I can hear someone's mic. I hope everything's fine. You all can hear me, right? Someone write a yes in the chat box, please.
Yes, ma'am, you're audible.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am, it's all right.
Okay. Then yes, publications and projects are something which will obviously strengthen your application, because publications are they're like the best thing ever if you do it. But it also depends on your field, because there are some fields where it is easier to publish. There are some where it is not. Especially for chemistry, I'm sorry to be going there, but especially for chemistry, publications don't come easy. They require like 7 to 8 months of work at the least, and you don't really get to do that until your master's thesis. And by the time you actually do your master's thesis and get a publication, the application deadlines have passed. So you don't have to worry much about it, but it's always good to have some publications. If you are getting it, good job. And projects are your gateway to getting a good PhD. So do internships, research internships, as many as possible. Because they will help you come in contact with professors. Try to do it in as best institute as you can, so that you are under one of the hotshot professors, so that you can, have a letter of recommendation which actually matters. So there is this slight chance that the letter of recommendation that you get from your SVNIT department won't hold a value which a LOR from a professor in IISc would, obviously, because I don't think I need to explain that. So projects are important, and that is how you get LORs. LORs are the most important thing, and to get LORs, you need to do projects. Then let's talk about the pros and cons. Better infrastructure and funding, I don't think I need to elaborate on that. Better quality of life, this is obviously very subjective, and this is my personal opinion. Don't brand me as an international, but I do believe that the quality of life in India is not at par with the quality of life in countries like US, Canada, Australia, and Europe. Then there's this beautiful point that there's a lot of flexibility in choosing your PhD project. So first year of your PhD, you do coursework. This is specifically for USA. You do your coursework. And then in that first year, you get to work for a couple of months and get to know your labs that you can possibly work in. And this helps you explore the institute. Like in India, when you apply, you give your interview, there's just this one professor who'll select you, and then you'll have to work in his lab. but that does not happen in the USA. You can decide that later on as well. So that's a very big advantage because you don't need to worry too much about how the professor will turn out to be. And then there's this more independence. I wrote this because initially, when you work in a non-Indian research environment, you might feel like you are not getting enough guidance. But that is not true. You will just get much more independence to explore and work in the field. For example, in Indian labs, you would be you would be introduced to the procedure, the methodology, and everything right from the beginning. From what I have seen and heard about work culture in labs abroad, is that they simply give you the literature, and then you are supposed to work through it. So there's a lot of space. Like you get a lot of space to actually work around the project. That is what I mean by more independence. Cons is this thing that you will miss India. It's culture, it's food, people. I mean, no matter which Indian restaurant you go to, outside India, the food won't just be the same, and you will definitely miss it. And you will be far away from friends and family. You'll have to skip out on festivals and probably your favorite cousin's wedding and a lot of other things. And it might seem trivial to you right now, but they matter. I would like to insist that these things matter as well. So it is a con. And then there's barely any research in the first year because you're just doing courses and all of that. So these are the cons. Now let us talk about PhD in Europe. It typically takes 3 to 4 years. Most of the countries have a 3-year PhD program. Now they're slowly and steadily moving towards increasing the duration of PhD. So you can also get 4-year PhD programs. They have a very structured PhD program, which means that the project is decided before you actually start working on it. So the advertisement of a typical European university would read something like a fully funded 3-year PhD position in blah, blah, blah field is available at this institute, which means that you will barely get to do any coursework. And since it's a timed project, like it's a 4-year project or a 3-year project, so there's a lot of pressure to complete it within that time frame. So you don't get to work on courses and all. The good thing is that you already know what you're working in. So you can prepare for it beforehand. You can, orient yourself like that. And they're very strict about these deadlines and the funding. But the thing is that you don't have to worry about funding because these are fully funded projects, so you get the funding while you're doing the project. How does the application process go through is that first of all, you will have to convince a professor to let you in their lab. This is very different from what we did in India and US and Canada and all. Because firstly, you will have to obviously literally convince a professor that you are suitable for this particular PhD position. So you visit their websites and all, you will realize that they usually send out advertisements for a vacant PhD position, and then you apply with your CV and SOP and all of that. Like first you write a initial ice-breaking email that I would like to apply for the PhD position, and then they will send you all the requirements, and probably they'll have a portal as well for the PhD thing, and you'll upload all of those documents, and then you'll be selected. And once you're selected, it's a funded position, so you don't have to worry about that. Some universities like Max Planck Institute and all, they have their separate application procedure where it is like you upload the thing and then your you're granted a PhD position based on that. So like it's like what do you call that thing? Collaboration of, like there are a lot of Max Planck institutes, so they collectively decide on PhD advertisements and then call for applicants and stuff like that. You will be required to give TOEFL or IELTS, which are English language exams. Um, it might not be required by the university, but the visa application, the embassy would definitely ask for it because you can't live there speaking Hindi. So they would need proof for English language. So you can give TOEFL or IELTS, any of them. They don't require GRE. I mean, they do consider GRE. GRE is not forbidden. They don't ignore GRE. But since GRE is considered tougher than TOEFL or IELTS, if you're aiming for a PhD in Europe, you do not need to worry about GRE. Then keep the same set of documents. As I said earlier, those things are important for a PhD application. So keep them prepared. And watch out for possible scholarships in different countries. So like Germany has the DARD, the German Academic Exchange Agency, which funds a lot of PhDs from India. Similarly, there are PhD scholarships in European countries as well, and they differ. So you can probably check them out. And they are all very lucrative options, like France, Austria, Poland, Switzerland. So you could, UK, you should definitely Google it and check them out. I can't list them all right now. Now let's discuss the pros and cons. Better infrastructure and funding. The first pros and cons remains the same. Great quality of life, splendid work-life balance, because you're not supposed to work on weekends, and it literally means that you're not supposed to work on weekends. Nobody comes on weekends. You're not supposed to work overtime. Like if the office hours stop at 5, you can leave after 5. That is not the case in India and US, obviously. India, there's no chance of you leaving before 7 or something. And US as well, I have, like the people I've talked to, American people they've confessed that they are sometimes required to work on weekends as well because PhD is demanding. But Europe, I don't think that happens. Nobody expects you to work on weekends. So the work-life balance is just perfect there. You graduate early. It's a 3 or 4 year thing. So by the time you're 25, 26, you're done with your PhD. And you don't have to spend time doing redundant coursework. I mentioned redundant coursework because it is important that you do coursework. So if you have done sufficient amount of courses in your master's, you should definitely go for a PhD in Europe because you don't need to worry about your basics. But if you lack in your coursework, then it is more advisable to be going for probably another master's or a PhD which offers coursework. So there are some PhD offers in Europe as well that allow you coursework. For example, mine does. I will be doing courses along with my PhD in the first year of my PhD. So you have to hunt for that and look for those and all of that. Then another beautiful thing about Europe is that there is a lot of industrial and collaboration with companies. So you can venture out of academia once you're done with your PhD. They collaborate with industries, they collaborate with companies, and they actually promote venturing out of academia, which is great if you're not someone who's into it. The cons include, I don't need to explain this again, not much exploring possible because the project is obviously defined initially. So if you do not have much idea about it, if you haven't explored it on your own, and you go there and you would be completely lost, and then you'll have to continue through it with it because you can't change projects in the middle of your PhD, unlike in India or US or Canada or something. Then there is rigorous research because the project is timed and there's a very rigid deadline. So you will have to work very hard in those 4 or 3 years. So it's kind of hellish. This is again a very controversial point. I am relaying it to you because I have been told this by literally everyone on the planet. Everybody, to whoever I told that I'll plan on doing a master PhD in Europe, they tell me that, oh, that's not a very ideal to do, including some professors. Professors have also told me that the US PhD program is the gold standard. It's very internationalized and it is meant for PhD, for master students from all over the world. So you should go for that. I took a gamble. I didn't listen to them, but there was this thing at the back of my mind that I didn't know about it until I was already in my final year. So I'm telling you that you will be, if you decide to do a PhD in Europe, you will be hearing a lot of, no, don't do that. But it has its pros, as you can see. So you have to decide on what kind of PhD life you want to have if you're choosing between India and US and Europe. So that's all of my knowledge about PhDs. Let's now talk about jobs that you can have after MSc. This is the only slide for jobs after MSc, but I think this is enough. Scientific Officer D is a government post that is advertised for research institutes. Like we have PARC, Bhabha Atomic Research Center in Mumbai, and branches in various other cities as well. Raman Research Institute and a lot of other research institute dish out this advertisement for scientific officer. The job is basically you are a bridge between. So I have never been a scientific officer, so I cannot exactly tell you, but I have interacted with scientific officers. So what they did was, for example, if some equipment in my lab is not working, or I need to, like the professor needs to buy more equipment or buy some computer or something, they usually relay it to the administration through the scientific officer. So scientific officer is the bridge between the scientists and the administration, and they often help out in the lab, like managing servers or managing equipment and all of that. You will have to apply, you have to clear their written test. PRC has their own test, or you can upload your GATE scores. And if you qualify, you are called for an interview. The BARC interview is infamous for grilling you for hours. It continues for literally, it happens for like 2 hours, 2-hour interview. So it's very rigorous, but like it's a good job, I would say. And then later on, you can decide to do a PhD from the same institute as well. So if you have cleared the written test and you've gotten the job and you decide that you don't want to do the job, but you want to do the PhD. So if your boss or your head agrees, you can do a PhD under him or probably someone else as well. Then you have ONGC, specifically for chemists, I would say, and other PSUs that offer jobs after MSc. But you have to have a good GATE rank, preferably under 200. And they conduct interview, and then you get the job, and you will have to, keep yourself updated about this. But you'll have to worry about these probably at the end of your MSc, in your final year or something. GATE, because you can give GATE only in your 5th year, the final year. So you can worry about these later. Initial years, you can explore probably academia, research and all. But yeah, these PSUs offer internships as well. They're not research internships. They're kind of different, but yes, you do get them. Then you have other jobs like in industries. Chemistry people, obviously, there are, especially for SUNIT students in chemistry, there are a lot of chemical industries in Gujarat. So there's tremendous scope. The only con is that the package is not satisfactory to an NIT graduate. So if you were doing from an MSc from a local university, you probably would not have minded a lower package. But since you're an NIT graduate, the industry package sounds too less for you. But yes, there is this option, and I would suggest you explore it as well. It's explore worthy. Then you have for mathematics graduates, obviously you guys learn a lot of coding, so you have a lot of options in terms of that, because you are allowed to sit for placements in almost all companies that have a coding profile. Um, then for physics people, also a lot of if you're into coding, you can do that, or otherwise electronics is a field which overlaps a lot with engineering. So if you're into that, you can get a job in the on-campus placements. Then we have the evergreen coaching institutes, which I do not really approve of, because I think they're a scam, and they should not run. But that's my philosophy. Keeping that aside, if you want to earn good money, you can get into coaching institutes. Like, they pay pretty well. And I think that's all about jobs. Obviously, this is not an exhaustive list. This is just from what I have seen my batchmates and my seniors do. So there will obviously be a lot more job options for jobs, but unfortunately, I am not aware of them. If you are, please mention it in the chat box. We'll discuss that at the end, right? Now let's come to prospective career options. Option number 3, that is higher education in a different field. You are obviously you can't go back to bachelor's, so you can do masters in business. What is the full form of MBA? Forget it.
Business administration.
So you can do an administration, right? So you can do an MBA if you are someone who is into management and stuff. You like organizing events, and you like dealing with people and all of that, and you are not someone who's very much into science and creating knowledge, you can obviously go for an MBA. For that, you will have to start your preparation for CAT in your 4th year if you're in MSc, and in your 3rd year if you're in BTech. And the exam happens in November, and the session starts in June or something. So right after you graduate in May, you will start your MBA in June. And CAT is probably the best. There are other exams as well, like we have GMAT for foreign masters in business thing. And I really don't know anything else about this. So this is that. One thing that I would like to say is that you will be kind of judged by your science enthusiastic peers if you end up quitting science. But you don't worry about it. Like, it's your life, it's your career. You know yourself best. If science is not for you, if research is not for you, it's not a big deal. You got into MSc at the age of 18 or 17. So if it turned out to be a wrong decision, it's not a big deal. You can obviously change fields, switch fields. It's not. Some people might not understand that. That's okay. They will eventually over the years. But if you're free to do an MBA or obviously other masters. So for example, if you want to do masters in some completely other field, you can, because which makes me come to my second point. So you can give your GATE exam and then do an engineering course if you are MSc graduate as well. I have heard of a lot of people. So I had this friend who did an MSc from ISER Mohali. He's not exactly a friend, he's a senior. So he did an MSc from ISER Mohali. He was an Inspire scholar. And the sole reason that he did an MTech, he got AIR 37 or something in physics in GATE. And the sole reason that he did an MTech from IIT Delhi was because of the stipend. He did not want to uh, drop or take a break here, but he didn't want to start a PhD as well. So he decided to do an MTech. I do not advise that. Please don't do that. But there is this, if you are actually really genuinely interested in engineering and you want to switch over to that, you can give your GATE exam and then get into an MTech course. And then you can apply to a master's in a different field as well. You will have to do a bit of more hard work if you're switching to something absolutely different, but it's not impossible. So good luck if you want to do that. Now I will be concluding with